Exodus is a cinematic science fiction action RPG in development by Archetype Entertainment, a Texas-based studio comprised of veterans from all corners of the gaming industry, with especially strong roots from BioWare with the developers like James Olin, Chad Robertson, Drew Karpyshyn, Jesse Sky, and Chris King at the top. And as you could see from the title of the video, yes, I have played it. Speaking of which, thank you to Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, and Archetype Entertainment for flying me out to check out the game. And obviously, I also got to talk to some of the devs, that being Chris King, Chad Robertson, and Drew Karpyshyn. Now, I have to make it absolutely clear here that I cannot give any real specifics about my experience. I cannot give you like deep details on things, but I can give you guys a feeling. I can describe my feeling of playing it, and I can go through some categories and hopefully answer some questions, because I asked you guys on YouTube and on Twitter to give me some questions and, things that you're wondering about with the game, so I'll try my best to answer those. And I'm not gonna waste any more time here. I'm just gonna start off with my general impression of the game. And well, a lot of you are huge fans of BioWare games, especially Mass Effect, because as you know, I started this channel way back when, just doing Mass Effect stuff and doing Mass Effect theories and talking about the next game and the trilogy and the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, things like that. That is to say, a lot of you are very interested in knowing if this could possibly be the spiritual successor we've been waiting for. And I'll say that yes, it could possibly be what people, Mass Effect fans especially, have been waiting for. There's a lot of potential in Exodus. There is, but that is not to say that my experience was spot-free and that it is perfect. It is also like being heavily developed. So what we got to play, people like me, Dantix, Wolfart FPS, Callie Elizabeth, a lot of us, creators got there and played a very rough version of the game. So we got essentially a taste of the world, we got a taste of what the vibe is and the feeling is, and again, right from the get-go, I have to say that the feeling of the world is, the vibe is excellent. It is one of those questions I've seen a lot. It's like, oh, is there Marvel writing? Is it modern dialogue? Is it what a lot of people fear as being like this thing that doesn't take itself seriously? And there's none of that in Exodus, as far as I could tell. It's a very serious game. Don't worry about that. This is a very mature game. There's actually, if anything, an absolutely oppressive feeling of the seriousness of the world, of the universe, of everything that is going on, with time dilation and things like that. And the heaviness that is laid upon your shoulders of the choices you will have to do, the choices you will have to make. And again, I can't give any specifics here, but yes, there is a heavy feeling with this game. And I think that is especially reflected with the soundtrack. You guys know that I love the Mass Effect soundtrack. It's one of the best video game soundtracks of all time. I think this game has sometimes, I know this is, I'm not allowed to say this according to the fan base, but, and I know I'm kind of hyping it up and trying not to, but the soundtrack, oof, sometimes it feels like an evolution of the Mass Effect soundtrack, which also translates into a sort of evolution of the Mass Effect genre. A lot of the parts of the game, of what I've played, it feels, the atmosphere, the vibe, it feels like an evolution of Mass Effect. This is kind of what I expect maybe the next Mass Effect to feel like, or what I would personally want the next Mass Effect to feel like. It's a grand space opera. It has massive moments that were clearly unfinished, but I could still see the full picture either way. That made me go, this is going to be, whoa. The music, the sound effects, again, especially, they've really put great care into making the sound really crunchy and popping. And this is something that often happens in video games, is that people often don't talk about the sound effects. They don't talk about the soundtrack. Those are so important, guys. Like a lot of your favorite games have been incredibly memorable because you remember the soundtrack. That's the soundtrack that accompanies the game. What it made you feel. It heightened the experience, right? Any game. Think of any game, and I promise you the soundtrack is what really transcends the moment in those scenes. And I really feel like this is one of those cases where they've actually absolutely managed to do that. They've nailed the soundtrack. You guys, you will see. You will see when you get to try it. It's really out of this world. So, but enough glazing about the soundtrack and the sound effects. You guys get it. But it goes hand in hand with the world building of Exodus. It's very grand and it's very majestic and it's very mysterious. It has a lot of those, and that's a question I've seen a lot as well. Is does this feel like Mass Effect 1 to 3? It feels like a mix of Mass Effect 1 and 3, I would say. It is grand, it's epic, but it's also mysterious in that you want to find out more. You want to explore. You want to find answers, and there's a lot of that. There's a ton of that, actually. And there's a lot of elements in Exodus, man, that are such cool additions and such unique additions in general. For example, the Awakened. I can't give specifics here, but the Awakened animals, like, they are much more believable than you might have worried that they might have turned out. Because if you've read the lore, if you've read the books, they generally, like most awakened animals, they have like these computers or chips or whatever in their foreheads that allow them to essentially talk through a computer voice. So most animals, like, they don't yap with their mouths. They talk through this technology. That said, though, there is some elements there where they do actually talk, but it's relatively believable, and it feels more like Easter eggs to some other stuff in entertainment you might have seen. And I think it works pretty well. Like, it doesn't feel not believable. It feels like one of those things where animals feel like more like aliens than animals. Speaking of aliens, we have the changelings. So the changelings is also one of those things where instead of aliens per se, they have these evolved creatures that are essentially servants of the Celestials. And the Celestials are these godlike evolved versions of humans. And the changelings are their servants. And they are also like partly human. They were evolved from human DNA. And you have a lot of changelings, a lot of them, and they are very alien. And this is something that James Olin said in one of the Q&As, one of the first Q&As for Exodus, after they had announced it, that a lot of the aliens you'll see in Exodus are more alien than you might have seen in other games. And obviously, I can name drop Mass Effect here. Yes, some aliens here are way weirder than I've seen before. And technically, they're not aliens because they come from humans, but they are so evolved and so different, and it's due to time dilation and everything that they're so weird. There's a lot of those. There were several moments in my session where I was like, whoa, okay, this is weird. And I feel like they are definitely leaning into the weirdness, and I think they should keep doing that, because a lot of the time, that's really what makes a game special, is when it leans into an element that you haven't seen before. And I feel like the Changelings and the Awakened are definitely that. And again, I know people have been worrying like about the Awakened, like, oh, is it going to feel strange with talking animals? I don't think so. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's pretty believable the way they do it. Now, enough yapping about the world elements. You can obviously hear here that the tone, I think, fits. The feeling of the universe fits. Elements in the world and the universe fits. It's properly unique and different. Now, what about the combat and the gameplay? Well, I think in general, it feels pretty good. I would say that, again, the sound effects help a lot. Again, I can't give too many specifics about the combat here, but you do use the main gun, the recycler, and you have various modes on it, and it feels pretty good. I would say that I would prefer some more variety in terms of weapon choices, because we only got to use the recycler, basically, and a few other tools that I can't give any details on, but I do feel like the game could use a sidearm and a heavy weapon or something like that, so you can cycle through various weapons and set up appropriately. Now, I don't know, because we only got to play like a very short sliver of the early game, so I don't know if you can actually find anything like these remnant weapons. If you've read the encyclopedia, you can find out about these very interesting, almost living weapons. And I don't know if that's going to be in the game. I hope they will be, because that would be so cool. I think they could probably use some ideas from that for some of the various weapons. So, cycling through other weapons instead of just only using the recycler. Overall, though, I think it's a pretty good idea to have like a steadily evolving gun. It's just, I'm a big fan of handguns. And I always want a sidearm in any shooter game. For example, in Mass Effect, I just love using the Carnifex. You guys know the very heavy-hitting gun in Mass Effect 2. Just one of the greatest, most iconic weapons, I feel, in gaming. It's something like that I would like to see. Overall, though, I think June, playing as June, like fighting, shooting, the melee combat is also pretty satisfying. Rolling around, combat rolling, like you're able to move a lot as June. It feels much better in terms of gameplay flow than any of the Mass Effect games. I do feel like this is like an evolution, again, of how the Mass Effect type game plays. Yeah, it feels good. It feels smooth. June is very maneuverable, is very agile, and you can definitely feel like he is very capable. Now, talking about the capable nature of June, we also have to talk a little bit about progression. I can't, again, say too much here, but there is a certain interesting system with the progression that I feel is probably going to make a lot of people excited. Now, I'm not sure if I can actually talk about this, but it's an interesting gameplay element where, let's say that you want to play as an asshole. You want to play as somebody who is let's say, renegade type player. You can absolutely do so. And by doing so, that affects your affinity, like your morality. And when you do that, at some point you will unlock perks that you can invest into combat. So how you decide to approach the game, how you decide to approach various situations and dialogue, and what choices you make, that actually affects what type of skills you can progress in terms of gameplay. That is, better damage, or being more, having more protection, more defense. Because, there is a system that is very similar to what you may remember from Mass Effect, the Paragon and Renegade. So that is there, and it, again, is a step up kind of in how you approach these things. Because as you know, in a lot of games, especially in Mass Effect, it's tied to overall dialogue. You unlock new dialogue options if you have high Renegade. If you have high Paragon, you unlock new dialogue options that you couldn't choose if you don't have enough affinity. And here it's actually tied to gameplay. So it's not just, unlocking other types of dialogue. It's about becoming a better, effective fighter. I think that's really smart. I like that idea. And the execution is pretty okay. I would say that there is still work to do. There is things about the skill trees and the overall builds that needs more work. Again, I cannot speak of any specifics here, but it is something that, I've left feedback on. It's something that we've all left feedback on, is like various aspects of the game. Especially the combat needs more work in terms of progression. What I do like about the combat, though, is that you can approach it in various ways. As you may have seen in some of the showcase videos they've shown before, a fully stealth playthrough is viable. You can absolutely stealth through the whole game if you want to. So absolutely, there is various things that I can't mention here as well that some of you might have come to expect from stealth gameplay, and some of it is absolutely going to be in the game that allows you to be as stealthy as possible. That said, I do feel like some of the finishers could be a little bit more, there could be more variety to the finishers, kind of like how you needs more variety, I feel, with the weapons. When I talk about finishers here, I'm obviously talking about combat finishers. which you have seen in gameplay. I think they could have, they could probably introduce some more variety there, some more moves and things like that to keep it fresh and keep it snappy, so you don't grow tired of using the same combat finishers over and over again. You want to keep things fresh whenever you're playing through the game, right? Overall, though, the combat pacing, I think, is pretty good overall. And just to mention here, there will be very difficult options, just so you know, for you to pick from. Again, Mass Effect players, you know what I'm talking about here. Unfortunately, I only got to try the normal mode, so it didn't have any, higher difficulty, but there will be. So don't you worry about that in case you want a real challenge. And that isn't to say that the normal mode is any cakewalk. I actually died a few times due to my own idiocy, obviously, and not so much the game. But yeah, overall it feels pretty smooth, feels crunchy, sound effects are great. And I guess the one thing I kind of want more of is some more proper gore, I guess. I would add that to the addition of things I want in the game. Some more gore. It is proper violent, but some more stuff like that. Sounds pretty insane of me to say it like that. Sounds like I'm crazy, but you guys know that it just makes combat feel better. Now, something that I've complained about a lot in games, in modern games, is the missing factor of weight. And thankfully, I gotta say that that Exodus has a proper feeling of momentum when you're moving as June. There is proper weights to his movements. He actually feels like an absolute unit when he's moving. That isn't to say that he's like clumsy or anything like that, but there's definitely a lot of work put into making sure that he feels organic to play as, to move as, right? So there is proper weight in the game, along with the crunchiness. I think they've really nailed that feeling of impact throughout various of the elements of the game. Speaking of June, let's go and talk about some of the companions and some of the dialogue and things like that. And again, I cannot give any specifics here. Overall, I feel like because here we only got to meet Tom and Elise, which are the first ones of your companions that they revealed. That's Elise is the mecha girl, and Tom is the heavily emotionally scarred man from the trailer. And I like them. I like them a lot. They are relatively interesting people. I like the aggressiveness of Elise. She introduces a lot of friction, which I think feels pretty natural. And Tom feels more like an older brother, I would say. He's the guy who takes charge and tries to make sure that you stick to the mission. And he's more of the, I would call it more Paragon type character. Elise is a little bit more free-spirited, but I think they've done the writing well there for the parts that I've seen. Again, we only got to play 2 hours, so it's not terribly much. But from what I could tell, they have written these people pretty well. And I think the rest of the story, the rest of the plot line seems like it's done really well. And that's most likely, in thanks to Drew Karpyshyn, the absolute legend who wrote Mass Effect 1, 2, and Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. You guys know who he is by now. Absolute legend. So again, he is the narrative director for the game, and so I feel like I can definitely see elements of his writing and him being the one who, okay, this goes here and this works like this, and this is going to work with this. I think it has a lot of those classic Drew Karpyshynisms, if you can call it that. You will notice. At any rate, I can't speak too much about the dialogue again, but I can talk about, I guess, what would be my final criticism about the game so far. And it's the one thing that I think all of us, everybody has been talking about, what all the comment sections across YouTube, across Reddit, across Twitter, across all platforms where they discuss Exodus is the interesting direction of art style. And here's the thing, right? I don't hate it, but there are things about it that I really want them to focus on trying to polish up as much as possible before release. Because, as you may have seen, June, the main character, of course, he has this propensity to do this. You know, there's a lot of duck face action going on. And again, this was an early build, but as you could see from the trailer, or from the previous trailer before that during the TGAs, June looks a little odd. And he's not the only one. He looks a little odd. Elise looks a little odd. Tom looks a little odd. Every other companion looks a little odd. And I think this is one of those things that they really need to work at, because everything else about the game I feel has such huge potential. It really does. Like the music, the sound design, the combat flow is nice. They have a lot of interesting ideas, you know, like I mentioned throughout this entire video, but some of the design for the characters is definitely, yeah, I don't really know how to say it. It's just weird. Some eyes are placed way too far apart from each other. Their facial symmetry is kind of strange. Their faces are kind of like too far up on their heads. There is a distinct lack of sharp jaw lines. There is a propensity to have a lot of triangular-headed individuals. And there is just a general lack of, I would say, attractiveness. That is the thing. And this is something that pretty much all of us that played the game agreed on. When you guys see a game for the first time, if the art style and the game doesn't look good on first impressions, when you see the game, it can instantly turn you off and make you uninterested. And we don't want this for a game that is so spectacularly ambitious as Exodus. It absolutely is. But when you have things that just makes it look weird, it just, it pulls back some of that excitement. And I talked about this the other day with one of the YouTubers, in that I personally don't really have a problem with the art style, but I can see it, you know? I can see you guys having a problem with it, because it might turn you off. And again, it's one of those things. You gotta get that right. You gotta get that right. And I am willing to give them the benefit of the doubt to work on it and try to adjust it as much as they can. We've already seen in the 20-minute showcase that was revealed the other day, or today, depending on whenever I drop this video, that there is a lot of adjustments. For example, Phaedra. She definitely looks better in that cutscene we see her in of this showcase. So, you know, props to that. They've made her look better, but they still have work to do. This also goes hand in hand with some of the banter dialogue. You may remember a while back that they revealed this conversation between June and Phaedra when they're talking and looking out an old ruin, an old celestial ruin. And a lot of people felt like it was kind of stale, and the way that they moved, it wasn't terribly cinematic. That is something that is a relatively common occurrence throughout the game, the banter dialogue, and it's specifically banter dialogue. Those are not the cinematic dialogue scenes. Like I've said before in that video when I talked about that section, I believe that this is probably just, you know, the in-between banter, and it is, you know, but there's a lot of it. And some background NPCs definitely have that Play-Doh face action going on. It's one of those elements where I feel like they probably need to put a lot of more effort into that as well, to make it look as just as good as possible. Again, the banter dialogue. So these sections where they're just standing and you have this fixed camera angle where you see both characters, that definitely needs more work. Absolutely. But overall, I would say that my experience with Exodus has been pretty good. Thankfully, I've been able to separate my experience being in Austin from the experience of playing Exodus. There's a lot of stuff that is really good here. There is. The potential is there. Like, this could be the Mass Effect-like game you've been waiting for. Let's just say sci-fi RPG, because it definitely feels like its very own thing. It borrows some elements, it's very similar in certain aspects to Mass Effect, but it definitely feels like an evolution of the science fiction RPG genre, I would say. It does. Interestingly enough, it's set in a relatively, not small, but it's set in a cluster right above the Milky Way galaxy, and it's smaller technically in scope than Mass Effect, because Mass Effect plays out in a big-ass galaxy, right? But Exodus plays out in a cluster above the Milky Way, and so you would expect it to feel smaller, but it doesn't. It feels bigger. it feels grander somehow. That's what I'm trying to say with the presentation. With the overall presentation, it's pretty insane. But again, there is a lot of small things that they have to adjust and fix, in my opinion, for it to truly become one of the greats. But could it be? Yeah, for sure. It has the potential, absolutely. And again, this is something that I think all of us were in agreement of. It just looks and feels really good, but there are parts that make it feel uneven a little. But again, I gotta give it to the devs. They have made something truly interesting here. I just hope that they can pull it off with the small issues, let's say, that we've voiced when we were there. Again, you know, we were talking about the game at length afterwards, so they absolutely know what a lot of the internet feels and what a lot of gamers feel about the game, and I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt to work on the game and keep cooking, Archetype. You got something special going on here, and it's good of them to listen, because that is something that I'm pretty impressed with by Archetype so far, is their willingness to iterate and listen to the fan base, which I think is excellent. Chad Robertson, Drew Karpyshyn, Chris King, these guys are awesome people. They're gamers just like you and me, and they're trying to make the best possible game they can. And so all respect to them, and thank you again to Wizard of the Coast for flying me out to Austin. As much as it was exhausting to fly all the way over there and then back home again, which took me, I think, about 30 hours, I appreciate it. But that's going to be it for today, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think so far, and let me know if you have any comments, and I'll see if I can answer any of them to the best of my ability, because I probably got to check first, like whatever questions I can actually respond to, because some of this is definitely, you know, no, I can't talk about it. At some point, I probably will be able to, but not right now. Thank you for watching as always, guys. Mr. Alton signing off.